Hello and welcome to CareerWise, the show that's never afraid to stick its finger in the wind to assess the educational turbulence on your behalf. It's quite blustery out there at the moment, so we've come inside to assess the different routes into teaching and how you can climb the greasy pole to career glory. First up, we meet one university student about to graduate and then start her Teach First journey.
I really liked what Teach First said about creating the leaders of tomorrow to provide you with skills which would be useful in your later life, whether it be in teaching or in other jobs.
Here to discuss these alternative routes in the CareerWise studio, we're joined by Martin Johnson from the ATL, while from the Future Leader Scheme we have Sir Iain Hall.
He's thinking they may also...
And we meet one young teacher on the scheme on a day when she's visited by her mentor, Sir Keith Ajegbo.
I think the coaching and the training that Future Leaders provides me with is when I move finally into my permanent school, my permanent placement, I will be a good, effective leader from the day I join their staff.
Graduating from university, many students are unsure of where to go next. Not in the case of Jess Dix though. She's a final year student and is heading straight for the Teach First scheme. So, CareerWise loaded up the van, telling parents and friends exactly where we were going and headed up the M1 to Warwick.
Hi, my name's Jess Dix. I'm a fourth year student at Warwick University studying Comparative American Studies. In the fourth year, there's a lot of pressure in terms of thinking about what you're going to do in the future, what will come after we graduate. I really liked what Teach First said about creating the leaders of tomorrow and offering workshops and different training to provide you with skills which would be useful in your later life, whether it be in teaching or in other jobs.
Gemma Edgcombe is in the second year of the Teach First programme and is currently working at St Marylebone School in central London.
It has a really ambitious mission statement, which is to address educational disadvantage in challenging inner city London schools. That's why Teach First came into being, because that was identified as a real kind of key issue facing London schools.
I want you to discuss quite quickly, in about a minute, how you think you could resist these changes that are going to take place.
I did want to do something that I felt that I was immediately making some kind of a difference. I saw an advert for Teach First and I just instantly was attracted to it. I graduated in June, went to Canterbury for 6 weeks training and then essentially started as a teacher in September, so it was a really quick turnaround.
To escape. And so
I've had discussions with people about on what basis they select participants, and I think one of the key things is stubbornness, because you just really have to not be prepared to give in.
I'm really looking forward to going down to London and meeting Gemma and seeing the school that she's been placed in. It'll be really interesting for me in terms of what I've got to come for next year.
CareerWise has organised for Jess to travel down to London to meet Gemma and find out what Teach First is really all about.
So obviously you're here to find out a bit more about Teach First. Do you have any questions?
Did you find the school welcoming when you arrived?
I'm very lucky at this school. And they're incredibly supportive of Teach First and of the programme. I think they appreciate our kind of general enthusiasm, because when perhaps the skills, you're still developing the skills, enthusiasm can make up for a lot, really.
Yeah. You said there were lots of advertisements for runaway slaves.
I'm actually quite interested in what kind of age groups you teach.
I think the really interesting thing about Teach First and what makes it very different really from other programmes is you don't know where you're going to end up.
So, quick, 30 seconds.
When your first year, you are treated as a full-time member of staff, but your timetable is slightly reduced because obviously you're training and being a teacher at the same time. I was completely surprised by the amount of how emotionally tired that you get, because I think One of the things that a lot of people in other jobs, if you're at a desk, for example, there you can withdraw from the situation around you. You can choose when you want to be kind of presenting or active and when you want quiet time. You can't do that with teaching.
If you and me, going back 2 years before you started the programme, obviously I haven't done any of the training or anything, is there anything you wished you had done or any advice that you could give me?
You cannot expect to get it right from day one, and you won't get it right from day one, and that's fine. There is just so much to learn, but that it does, every day it does get easier.
I think the scheme will allow me to get a taste for it and see if it's something I want to do. You're a teacher for 2 years and you learn key skills which can be useful in other jobs, but I'll have to wait and see.
Well, Jess clearly got an awful lot out of her visit to London. To discuss Teach First and other matters, I'm joined on the famous CareerWise sofa by Martin Johnson from the ATL and Sir Iain Hall from Future Leaders. Martin, do you think her experience was typical, or was it a rather rosy view of Teach First?
Some young people have done exceedingly well as Teach First teachers, but we also know that they're the exceptions. And I have to say, Gemma was teaching in one of the easiest secondary schools in inner London. In most London schools, Teach First graduates only succeed with a tremendous amount of support from their colleagues in the school, and many, sadly, don't get as much support as they need to survive. In 6 weeks, you cannot learn a very complicated craft. In most other training routes, there is a tremendous amount of practice in classrooms, which is then subject to follow-up discussion and the opportunity to improve. Teach First graduates really are chucked in at the deep end. With all respect to those smashing kids, that's what they are. They're straight out of university.
Sir Iain, would you be an advocate of there's nothing like doing it to learn how to do it as opposed to a longer training period?
Well, believe it or not, Peter, whilst I understand Martin's concerns, I actually was never teacher trained, so I did jump in the deep end and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I actually think it's a great scheme, Teach First, because too many young people look at teachers, especially those in urban environments, and think that's far too difficult a job for me. And going on Teach First, just as Jess and Gemma did, it gives them a 2-year experience, and if they can catch that bug within 2 years, then we've got a lifetime to put it right for them.
Tell us a little bit about Future Leaders, Sir Iain. Is there a different philosophy behind that as to the Teach First one?
Not in the sense that Teach First is centred on the urban challenge, so Future Leaders is centred on the urban challenge as well. We live in a country where far too many youngsters are locked in urban environments with low expectations, low aspirations, and as a teaching force we really need to push in there and sort it out for them. Future Leaders, like Teach First, takes young people, middle-aged people, any sort of person who wants to actually move into leadership. I was very lucky as a school leader because I'd made head within 16 years. The average age of a person becoming head teacher nowadays is about 45, so it's a career run of 23 years. And that's a long time to expect anybody to stay in any profession to get to the top as they climb from step to step to step. What Future Leaders does is to try to cut out all those steps, use a different model. We're using a hospital type model where we take a young person, train them rapidly and heavily, and then place them in residency alongside a really good urban head teacher with a well-structured program of experiences. In that way, within 4 years, we hope to have head teachers.
And what about, do you have a similar optimistic look, or do you think that scary headlines about how difficult teaching is becoming and consequent lack of support is going to scare people off?
No, I don't think so. I would say that ATL believes that leadership should begin in the early years of teaching. Every young teacher should play a part in the leadership of their school. But I have to say also that I think the best school leaders have got at least some depth of experience of classroom work in addition to their leadership skills.
What are the potential or actual areas of friction between people who are fast-tracking and those who have taken the more traditional teacher training route?
As long as these schemes are seen to be open and transparent, and the people know that anybody can get on the scheme, I think that'll be pushed to one side.
Thanks very much indeed to Martin Johnson and Sir Iain Hall. Well, with Sir Iain's warm recommendation ringing in our ears, perhaps it's best to find out what the reality is for those on the Future Leader scheme. We caught up with Joanne Dunphy, an English teacher in Barnet, on the day of an important visit from her career mentor.
I coach Jo as part of Future Leaders.
Before Sir Keith meets Jo, he discusses her progress with her head teacher, Peter Blenkinsop.
How has Jo? I mean, last time I came in, she was doing that work with Year 7 on that behaviour for learning stuff.
She's been instrumental in driving that forward. Yeah. She just puts stuff together so well and so clearly.
Future Leaders, it's come out of the notion that in about 4 or 5 years' time, there's not going to be enough head teachers around. They're particularly concerned about that for inner city schools.
That he's not trying to resist drowning is a positive, but that's not normal. I was a senior teacher in my last school, line managing a program called Training Schools, and then I applied last year, obviously, to be on the Future Leaders program, and here I am. I met Sir Keith for the first time on what we call the summer training program. We first had 2 residential weekends in July, and then our summer training for 2 weeks over the summer holidays, and Keith was involved right from the beginning. But overall, their performance and their consistency of their behaviour was better throughout an entire week. And then when I realised he was my coach, I was actually quite ecstatic, and I was glad that I got Keith.
Future Leaders is an accelerated route to headship.
I want to be a good leader, not just an alright leader. I think the coaching and the training that Future Leaders provides me with is when I move finally into my permanent school, my permanent placement, I will be a good, effective leader from the day I join their staff.
My role is as a coach. There's 20 Future Leaders in this current cohort, and there are 4 coaches, and all of the coaches are experienced ex-head teachers, and our role is to work with the Future Leaders, obviously giving them to some extent the benefit of our experience and coaching them through the residency. I enjoy working in Future Leaders because I enjoy working with talented future heads. And how's it been going with you, and then how's it been going generally?
The prospect of finding a job is quite daunting.
It's going to come down to, isn't it, being confident, and I think that's it, believing you're going to get the job, which I think you should, and B, not panicking because you think, God, I've got to get a job, it's, time's moving on. I think you'll be fine. I think that she will make in 4 or 5 years' time an exceptional head teacher.
So Keith has really kind of once again given me confidence and boosted my confidence again in what I'm doing, and helped me find a way forward for what I need to work on for next time I see him.
Good luck then. See you then. Yeah. Bye. Bye.
Well, that's it for this CareerWise. Don't forget you can find out more information by visiting our website. The address is www.teachers.tv. You can download programmes, you can find out about resources, and by golly, you can even post your own comments. So do visit the site. Thanks to all our guests on this week's show. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.